Hi everybody, welcome. This is Rob Provencher here from the Wizard of Light, and in this particular presentation I want to talk to you about your ISO setting. So we've talked about shutter speeds and we've talked about aperture, and the final in the triage of settings is your ISO, which is your sensitivity. So your sensitivity determined by, it's a setting on your camera, it's the ISO setting. If you're not sure where it is, you got to become familiar with your camera so that you know how to set your ISO setting. Now cameras nowadays have become much better at handling in particular higher ISO settings. So let me just start off by showing you something in this particular chart right here. Now in this chart you can see where at the lower ISO settings there's hardly any noise. Now back in the days of film we used to call that grain. Same thing, it's noise, it's not considered desirable. However, there are exceptions to the rule, which I'm going to show you momentarily. As the ISO goes up, as your camera becomes more sensitive, so in other words, if there's less light available to you, you can compensate for it by turning the ISO up so that your camera can handle lower lighting situations. And the fact that there's more noise and the fact that that's not a desirable thing is important for guys like me who are shooting money gigs, paid gigs. If I'm shooting commercial, weddings, families, babies and whatnot, I want to get good results. I don't want to deliver noisy, grainy images to my clients. Again, there's an exception to that, but let's get to that in a minute. So I need, in those situations, lower ISO. However, there are times where I can get away with a higher ISO. Now in particular, a wedding, when I'm photographing a wedding, especially with the professional cameras and the Sonys that I use, the A7S, the A7R, I can crank the ISO up 10, 20, 25,000. At one time, that was unheard of. Nowadays, I can photograph at those ISO settings quite easily. And typically, the times that I need to shoot at those settings is when I'm in a low light situation, when I'm photographing a wedding, say at the bride's home or inside the church or inside the reception hall where there's candlelight. Any of those situations, I like being able to photograph the actual lighting that is available, the available light. You see this in movies all the time, and there's an excellent video called Stanley Kubrick, Practical Light. Go on YouTube and check it out. And they explain how lighting works in movies. Practical light means using the available light, and it shows sort of in the scenes, versus studio lights where you can't see where the lighting is coming from. I like the practical light when it comes to candid shots, scene shots like the inside of a church or inside of a hall or anything of that nature, so that it just has an air of authenticity to it. So if the images are grainier, noisier, it doesn't matter because I'm not really blowing these up large. They're at the most probably going to go in 8x10 or a panorama inside a wedding album. And even yet, if there's a little bit of noise, it sort of has that photojournalistic look to it. The most important thing in my particular situation when I'm photographing at those settings is the subject matter and the story that I'm telling. And again, that's in a later video, so we're sticking with the technical aspects right now. So if you have a powerful image and it's a little bit grainy, noisy, and it's sharp, very important to have a sharp in-focus image. To me, that matters far more than having a technical image which you were not able to acquire because you were stuck in technical mode. So I have no problem shooting at ISO, higher ISO settings quite often under those circumstances. In my studio and when I'm doing formal portrait sessions at a wedding or for families and commercial settings, it's not as desirable, so I try and avoid those ISO settings whenever I can. So if you look at the images here, let me just show you another series, and I photographed these while I was sitting down at a restaurant. It was like an outdoor patio, and I was waiting for my friends and family to show up. I was the first one there, and I thought, oh, there's a good setting. I'm going to photograph this little knobby thing on the wall. And look at the different settings here, the different ISO, and you can see, and this is with the Sony RX10, which is considered a point and shoot. It is not super great at handling the higher ISOs, but you can see as the ISO goes up here, you can see that it's not so bad, right? It's not so bad. And I wanted to show you this. With the professional cameras, much better results. With the smaller sensors, the lower priced cameras, let's just use a rule of thumb. Generally speaking, I would try and avoid shooting at 2000 ISO, if at all possible, with my point and shoot camera. Less than 1000 is preferred. I would be very comfortable shooting at 800, 400 or less with a smaller camera, smaller sensor, with the Sony RX10 or the Sony a6000. So the lower ISO, 100-ish, less sensitive. Incrementally, as you bring your ISO up, the sensitivity to the scene and to light is increased, but the payoff is you're going to get more noise. All right, we'll see you in the next video. Thank you very much. Bye for now.